This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Special Fight the Future Minute podcast. I'm your host, Marlene Stemme. You're listening to our coverage of minute 103 of the X-Files Fight the Future. This minute begins at 102 minutes with Mulder crouched on the ground supporting Scully, looking around at the aliens smashing free from the cryopods, and ends at 102 minutes and 59 seconds with Mulder and Scully having reached the outside world and Mulder looking back into the tunnel as the alien creature is swept back in. To discuss this minute, I'm joined by X-Cast patron Michelle Milbauer. Welcome back to Fight the Future Minute, Michelle.
Hi, I'm glad to be back. Having fun.
Yeah, it's been a good discussion so far. So we're going to head into minute 103, which begins after Mulder has basically resuscitated Scully using his form of CPR, and they're crouching on the ground. He's supporting her, and they're looking around as the aliens are bursting free from their cryopods. And so Mulder kind of he sees all this going on again, and he hauls Scully to her feet, and more aliens are bursting out of their pods. And from the making of the X-Files book, I did a little reading in that about the film crew having some trouble with the cryopods breaking properly during various points in the filming and all the sort of reshuffling they had to do because of that. And I think the main point was they thought it was difficult to simulate the effect of ice breaking. They thought it was just it's ice. We've seen ice break in small amounts, it'll be easy or whatever. It just seemed obvious. But they had to redesign everything and then build the set of the cryopods partially again and use, I think it was plastic and fiberglass over aluminum frames. And then they had the pneumatic arms, I guess, that were articulated to open these flipper paddles that then revealed the ice that was made out of fiberglass and plaster and different things like that, and then some actual ice. And they used breakaway material positioned on different areas of the cryopod depending on whatever action was supposed to be assigned to that pod. So you'd have a creature's head come through one and an arm come through another, or a whole body come through. And so they had to build all of these differently with different composites of the materials and for each one. And they couldn't find one that, a material that simulated all the properties of ice. So I thought that was, from a material standpoint, that was interesting.
It's really interesting. It's one of those things that while you're watching it, you 100% believe that, wow, that's ice breaking. I mean, it's convincing. I mean, not that you've ever seen an ice pod breaking, at least I haven't. But yeah,
but I feel like I have because of this.
Yeah. I mean, it all seemed, that logically seems like that's what it would look like, right? Mm-hmm. But then it also, it's interesting to read those behind the scenes type of things to see how those practical effects really work. And while they make it look so easy, it really is incredibly difficult. I mean, to me, I would think, okay, well, we just got to have this stuff break. And forever they've used basically I'm sure this isn't the right term, but it's kind of like sugar glass for when, in the old Westerns, when they would break bottles over each other's heads and stuff, it was sugar, and that way it would shatter like glass, but nobody's getting hurt. But to find that it was so in depth and so difficult for them, and ultimately they made it look perfect.
Yeah. I think they said that they had some forms of glass that would break easily, but it wouldn't crack and shatter the way they wanted it to look when the creatures were coming out, and then other things that would crack and shatter, but it didn't really look like ice, or you couldn't see through it. So it was just a whole mix of variables. Just one of those unforeseen things that seem to go, I guess throughout any movie production, but they seem to have quite a few of them. So at this point, Mulder boosts Scully up into the vent, and so she's pulling herself in. And we've had a little discussion about her ability to pull herself into the vent, given that she has just been resuscitated, just been pulled out of the cryopod, basically she's almost hypothermic.
Yeah, she's got freezer burn. She just, had CPR done. Conceivably, at best, your ribs aren't feeling very good. My ribs are fully intact. I haven't been in a cryopod, and I could not pull myself up out of into that vent. If I guess if my life depended on it, I suppose I could. But wow, Scully's impressive.
She is, and I mean, I know Mulder is boosting her into the vent, so it's
that's
one of those like assisted pull-up maneuvers.
Yeah, there you go.
But I still think those are still difficult, and especially in her condition, I think that'd be very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of the things that kind of ignites my desire to have better survival skills, so that I would be able to do a pull-up, and not just a pull-up like on a bar, but a pull-up into like a vent like that or a window frame or something if I were in the same situation that Scully's in. So it sometimes motivates my workout plan.
Yeah.
From a survival standpoint.
Yeah, I hear that because I mean, but again, when your life depends on it and you have that adrenaline rush, a lot more is possible at that point than if you're just sitting on the sofa watching again an episode of the X-Files.
Thinking like, I wish I could do that.
Yeah,
that's true. And I think they're both, they're kind of on the same page at this point anyway. Like they're, Scully's gung-ho to get out. Mulder has been gung-ho to get out. They're both equally motivated. Not that they weren't motivated before, but she has a little more strength. So it looks like it's more of a go at this point. So that's also probably helping.
Yeah.
So Mulder, as his characteristic, is looking around at the emerging aliens and telling her to pull. So he's kind of encouraging her forward. And she finally gets into the vent and then says Mulder and kind of looks back after him because he's starting to pull himself up. And when they show the angle of him pulling himself up, that also looks pretty difficult to me.
Yeah.
A lot of arm and upper body strength. But he's doing it.
Especially after having climbed that impossible wall a few minutes ago.
I know, right. Exactly.
I mean, talk about running on adrenaline, yeah.
And climbing up the wall.
Yep.
Just having to sustain that level of strength. But he's pulling himself up, only to be grabbed on the ankle by an alien hand as it breaks through the cryopod and reaches for him. And I thought that was kind of a classic horror moment. I thought that was one of the most effective uses of the aliens breaking out of the cryopods. Because everything else is sort of like, to this point at least, is like he's watching and seeing what's happening and seeing what might come. But that moment when that little hand reaches out and grabs him. Yeah,
that was definitely a jump in the theater, spill your popcorn a little bit moment. Because it had been, intense and anxious and tense and everything else and like, oh, something's happening. But this is the first point when something with the aliens actually happens. And it was kind of like, it was very evocative of a horror movie for sure.
And I think that you had mentioned that it reminded you of Alien, the original Alien movie too, right?
Yeah, a lot of these corridors and the impossible wall earlier and the wall that they're going to come up to make their final escape. It's very dark and very industrial looking, and things are kind of in shadow, and you hear the dripping noises and the ambient sounds around them, and it was very, to me anyway, evocative of Alien or Aliens. I kind of made a joke that at one point I was kind of expecting Sigourney Weaver to pop out from behind one of the pods and start mowing down aliens. But joking aside, it was just that industrial look of it, I think, is what really reminded me of Alien and Aliens. And then, of course, even kind of the silhouette of the alien that ultimately hatches from one of the pods. Still, not directly look like the monster from Alien, but it's just very reminiscent to me. Kind of like maybe they were paying homage to that movie.
And Rob Bowman had said that he liked the way that Alien didn't completely show the alien, but it was more stitching together bits of images so that the audience would put together what it looked like, and it would just be constantly in your imagination.
You kind of have to fill in the blanks and kind of freak yourself out rather than depending on the monster itself to do it. Of whatever's in your own imagination is probably worse than anything they could show you. Yeah, that's, I think, an effective way of going about the monster. And even the way they hatch out of their hosts and out of the cryopods, it's kind of reminiscent to me of the chestburster in Alien. So, yeah, just kind of definitely a scene here that's very horror movie reminiscent, body horror and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then they said they built mechanical alien hands that were cable operated by a puppeteer so that the fingers would move and the claws would extend from the tips of the fingers just to make it look
articulated.
Like it had sort of like articulated and like it had some sort of like gross arm movement went out to grab Mulder. Mulder is struggling to climb into the vent and also dislodge his ankle from the alien's grasp, and which he does, eventually gets away. And then at that point, it just seems like they're all coming out of the pods. There's, no mystery anymore what's happening. But he gets away and tells Scully to keep moving. So at this point, Mulder and Scully then are climbing through the vent, and the sounds of the alien, this is another kind of sounds, rich part of it. They're snarling and smashing glass behind them.
Yeah, kind of squealy noises too. Just, yeah. Anything that's making that noise, I don't want to see up close and personal. So yeah, move, keep going.
And it's like a weird birth scene at the same time, I guess, too, And it reminds me also a little bit of Gremlins, which I haven't seen since I was a child. But
now I want to watch Gremlins.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. They take those long kind of claws and screechings, but
Yep.
So at the end of the vent, we have an opening that has a light shining in, and then there's some snow at the base. So you kind of know that's the goal. That's the outside world with that snow, and the light coming in. So the next thing we see is from the outside, and Scully's hand reaching outside the opening of the vent and into the world with her pulling herself out. And that's kind of, I don't think it was necessarily structured that way, but I think that's an interesting kind of hand motif with her human hand reaching out and, pulling herself to safety, as opposed to the alien hand
was trying to drag Mulder back in.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought of that. That's a very good point.
Scully climbs out, and then Mulder scrambles out. He scrambles out, and he sort of looks back in as the alien comes out for him. I mean, he backs away when it's coming right at him, but then he looks back into the hole when the alien, I guess, is kind of vacuum sucked back into the tunnel. And
that's such a Mulder thing to do. Right? I barely escaped. I mean, it dang near took my foot off. At the very least, it almost took my shoe off. I'm out of here. It's right on my heels, and yet, instead of getting as far away from this vent hole as I can possibly get, nope, I'm going to turn around and peek back in there to see if it can just reach up and grab me. Yeah. Move! Get away from there!
Yeah. Mulder would not have done well in the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah, I don't believe. He would get that pillar of salt. That's the one where they weren't supposed to look back in that kind of myth, I guess.
Yeah, no, he's...
Lot's wife looked back, pillar of salt.
Yeah.
That'd be Mulder.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that until this moment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it fits, but it's that,
he can't help himself. He's got to see the proof.
He's got to see what's still going on in there.
Right. And even, I mean, it happens throughout the remainder of the series as well. I mean, they get out of something and then, okay, I mean, I guess this is in part due, in my mind, because of the recent rewatch that I did, and one of those episodes was The Truth. And it's okay, you have your out. They busted you out. You can go to safety, go north, get off the continent. And instead, nope, I gotta see a man about the truth.
Yeah, that's true.
You have your way out, get out. And yet, nope, I'm gonna go back and look.
Yeah,
it's Mulder.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about it quite like that.
Yeah.
That's true.
But that's way in the future from this point.
It is, yeah, that's true. It is. But that is still Mulder. So they're out, but he's kind of looking back, and then the alien is sort of suctioned with everything else, it looks like, in a big kind of cloud of steam back into the vent.
Right.
And that is where we are going to, for this minute at least, leave Mulder and Scully. Did you have any other thoughts on this that we haven't covered yet?
No, just, I guess, the, small avalanche, I guess, that in turn is what, vacuum sucks the alien back into the ship. And why? What was that? I mean, is it again because the ship is about to, it's unmooring, it's going to be lifting itself up out of that space? And it's just interesting that, what was it, 10, 15 seconds prior to that, our heroes, come out of that same hole. One other thing had caused any kind of delay, and they wouldn't have made it. So it's just kind of a interesting shot. I mean, again, it's Mulder hey, what was that? Was that really what I think it was? Yes, it was. Get your face out of there. But, just the timing of that and how it could have been them that were pulled back into the ship to not get out. So. Yeah.
I think that's always it, too, is it could have been them,
Yeah.
And had they escaped. And do you think that we were supposed to, at this time, know that the ship is unmooring itself to leave?
No, I mean, at this point, I don't even know if we know. Do we know yet that it's even a ship? Like, I think...
I didn't, but I don't... It's entirely possible I missed
So it's kind of like it's some sort of underground... The cold is what's, kind of incubating the alien life itself. And so that's why, these pods are there, and why they're on this track, and why the consortium and Cigarette Smoking Man are there at this site. So I don't know if at this point we're just meant to think that this is kind of a hatchery or, a nursery, for lack of a better term, for these creatures, and it is industrial. Yeah. And it's just this place where these things are. And it's not until later that when it actually leaves that we realize it's a ship.
That was my understanding. It's just like some sort of underground base.
Yeah.
A camp or whatever.
Right. Like a giant natural refrigerator.
Right.
That they've built the structure and then the snow around it to keep everything cold, because the cold is what's, regulating the incubation of these creatures. But then as it turns out, nope, it leaves later. So that's when we find out. At least, well, now I'm going to have to watch from the beginning and
watch all of it again.
Again and again and again for the however many number of time. But
I think you're right, though. I don't think until it lifts and then we see it go over. I don't think that.
Yeah, unless there was something there that I just have missed.
There may be some clue, but I don't think that it was meant to be obvious.
Yeah,
but I do think that's a great point, though, that it was like mere seconds and Mulder and Scully would have been psyched, or one of them. Mulder would have been psyched.
Mulder would have been,
It's always those moments of what they escaped, I think, that makes me panic a little bit. Like, okay, now they're out of it. But you just think about how fortunate they were to just how the timing of things works out for them.
Right. And it's also interesting, analyzing it after the fact and with rewatches, because at the time, I don't remember having really nitpicked any of it. I mean, I remember leaving the theater at, I don't remember what's the running time, like 2 hours, I believe, roughly. So leaving the movie theater at 2 a.m, not thinking, wow, that was really bad CPR, or like, it was really weird that he was looking around at aliens instead of making sure that Scully was conscious, or, whatever other thing. It's just, endless things that you can nitpick. But, I mean, I don't remember leaving the theater that first time thinking of any of that. Just like, oh, that was so much fun. That was, yay, X-Files.
Right, yeah. And not like, how serendipitous that they got out in 5 seconds.
But it is kind of fun on rewatches to think about those kinds of things. And, also kind of notice things with each rewatch that you never really noticed or thought about before. So, yeah, it's just kind of a fun experiment.
Totally agree. And I haven't, one of my Fight the Future, like when I went to see it for the first time, one of my memories was walking out of the theater, and I was with a group of friends, and my friend Dusty said, I don't even remember what that was about. She was just in a state of excitement and, enthusiasm afterwards. She's like, I don't even remember what that was about. So I'm sure that we didn't. I was like, no, I don't either. So I'm sure that we didn't think of any of these things.
Yeah, it was just euphoria. It was fun. We got to see our heroes on a giant screen, and we saw aliens, and we saw the Smoking Man, and we saw, all these things huge on such a grander scale, and it was just fun. And then on rewatch, just coming back through and thinking, like, how did he climb that wall?
How did he,
right. Should he have had her beside him or behind him, or like, how did that work? So, just, fun things to rewatch and look for, and try and see if you can look at it from a different perspective, I guess. It's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, all the different perspectives add layers, and then when you're not as, keyed up with adrenaline, I'm not going to say that we were as keyed up with adrenaline as Mulder and Scully are in the situation in the movie, but it's still a heightened state that first time you see it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep.
So that's all for this Fight the Future Minute. We will be back next time for minute 104. In the meantime, where can our listeners follow you on social media, Michelle?
I am on Twitter at mmbaker13, and if anyone has any suggestions for interesting rewatch ideas, I am all ears, so just find me there.
Okay, and I'm on Twitter at Marlene MHS, and I'm also on Facebook, mainly in the XCast Basement group. So to everybody that listened, thank you very much. Michelle, thank you for joining me for the discussion, and until next time, trust no one.
Elsewhere. on We Made This. Life's milestones.
Whenever it was that there was that census where there was the campaign to try and get everybody to say that their religion was Jedi.
Oh, I remember it well. I think I did put Jedi, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I was adamant that I really wanted to put that down because it aligns a lot more with my beliefs than anything else. You know, Star Wars has always been there for me. But yeah, that's when my mum was saying, no, we had you christened, and I ended up losing that one. And then when I lived on my own for a later census, I just, by that point, just put non-religious.
I'm in a band podcast.
Flaming Lips did a gig and they were all in bubbles. So the whole band, you know them big bubbles you get that you can play football in? The whole band were in them and all the people in the crowd were in one of them.
I'd go to the gig with a pin and fucking ruin everyone's evening.
I think you need a big pin.
Then you have to get out of your bubble first with your pin. They're going to see you.
You have a bubble with a pin on it. Or what, like you're like a sea urchin just going around causing chaos.
Hey, rolling around.
Could you have a fag enough?
I suppose you could get your own bubble, innit?
Frame to frame.
So Sean, have you got anything further you wanted to say on the two films that we've looked at this week?
I think they're both overlooked gems, and anyone who hasn't seen them needs to go and check them out pronto. Enough said.
I agree with you. We could have also called the theme for this week "Nerdy White Guy Tries to Find Love."
But are you having a go at me there?
No, I'm just saying
because I bore my heart when talking about the way back. I thought you were having a pop at me there.
No, absolutely not. I'm just saying that's what we could have called the theme for this week.
I mean, we could have done. It could have been like, you know, podcaster recalls painful memory of riding bike in front of girl.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.